I never thought my night would take such a turn. I never pictured myself becoming that man. It's the one whose story strangers murmur about over cheap whiskey in dimly lit bars, or the kind stumble across in late-night confession threads online. Yet somehow that's exactly where I ended up. One evening was all it took to rip apart everything I believed about my wife, my marriage, and the life we'd built. It began like any ordinary Saturday. She mentioned she was going to a bachelorette party. Nothing wild, just a few drinks and dancing with the girls. She'd said casually, even laughing as she added, "Don't bother waiting up. We'll probably be out late." Her tone was light routine. But there was something different in the way she looked that night. Not just beautiful. Intentionally beautiful. The red dress clung to her like it had been painted on. Shorter than anything she usually wore. Her heels looked better suited for a Hollywood premiere than a crowded dance floor. Fresh curls framed her face, makeup immaculate. And the air behind her carried a thick trail of perfume that lingered long after the door shut. A voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Why like this for a night with friends?" I shoved the thought away, but unease clung to me. Maybe it was the way she didn't meet my eyes as she left. Maybe it was how she skipped the goodbye kiss she'd never once forgotten, not even for a quick grocery run. Whatever it was, it crawled beneath my skin and stayed there. I sat in the living room with the TV muted, my thoughts louder than any movie. I told myself I trusted her, but trust cracks when silence starts screaming. Eventually, I picked up her iPad. She never disabled the sync. A tiny on the map appeared. Not at a bar, not a club, but at a suburban house. Not part of the girls' night plan she'd mentioned. I told myself maybe it was just a starting point before they headed out. But an hour passed, then another that didn't move. The weight in my stomach grew heavy. I grabbed my keys. The drive is burned into my memory. Every street, every stoplight, my knuckles gripped the wheel tight enough to ache. My heart pounded in my throat. I wanted to be wrong, but deep down, I already knew I wasn't. When I arrived, the truth was visible before I even stepped inside. Cars lined both sides of the street. Music boomed within, the bass rattling the windows. Shadows danced behind the curtains. This wasn't some casual hangout. It was a full-on party. A man I'd never met. Drunk and grinning, with a red Solo cup in hand, swung the door open. "Hey man, you made it," he said, clapping me on the back like we were old friends. I stepped in. The air was thick with heat, perfume, alcohol, and something sour beneath it all. Bodies moved everywhere, laughing, shouting, kissing, swaying. I searched. For her kitchen, living room, backyard, nothing. Then I noticed the hallway, quiet except for the muffled thump of music. A single door at the far end sat slightly ajar. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to turn around. I didn't. I pushed the door open. There she was, naked on. A bed with a man I'd never seen before. They froze, faces pale. She snatched at the sheet, her eyes wide with guilt and fear. Her lips parted. Maybe call my name, maybe to lie. But I didn't hear her. I turned and walked away. No shouting, no scene, just a hollow, cutting silence. I drove home with hands trembling so hard I could barely hold the wheel. Back in our bedroom. I sat on the edge of bed, the same one that used to mean comfort, and stared at the floor. The night stretched on without sleep, without tears, just an endless replay of what I'd seen. When morning came, she returned, makeup smeared, eyes swollen, voice shaking. She spoke of mistakes, drunkenness, meaningless moments. But to me, it meant everything. I'd already printed the divorce papers. I gave her 30 minutes. 30 minutes to pack her things. 30 minutes to erase herself from the home she destroyed. She pleaded, but I was done. I'd rather live with a sting of truth than choke on the sweetness of a lie. She could deceive herself all she wanted. I'd seen enough. That night taught me something I'll never unlearn. Love is delicate. Trust is sacred.